get ready to be, well, honestly, to be pretty inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Because today we're going really global. We are going across continents.
Yep.
We are diving deep into the climate crisis, but specifically through the stories of, get this, over 100 young women
Wow.
who are leading the charge against climate change
Yeah.
all around the world. And we're taking Climate Sisters v6.pdf as our guide,
Yeah.
which is amazing in and of itself, I think, just the scope of this.
I mean, talk about putting a human face on
Yeah.
this global crisis. It's really incredible and kind of, I think, brings it home.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into those personal stories, because I think that's where really the heart of this lies, I think it's really important to set the stage a bit.
For sure, yeah.
So, what's the state of the planet? What does this report tell us?
Well, I mean, just to throw some numbers at you right off the bat,
Sure.
The global average temperature is already hovering around 15 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
And this one's a little bit unsettling.
Okay.
2024, the year we're in right now.
Right.
On track to be the first or second warmest year on record.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to think about, how some countries are contributing to that far more than others right now.
Absolutely. The report does a good job of calling out those top CO2 emitters.
Yeah.
And the numbers, I have to say, they're kind of staggering.
Yeah.
I mean, China, they're at the top with over 12,000 million tons of CO2 emissions.
Wow.
You've got the U.S. trailing behind them, but still over 6,000 million tons.
It's a lot.
It is. And then you've got India and the EU, each contributing over 3,000 million tons.
Yeah. And you start to really see the unequal burden of this crisis.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, and I think that's something, going through Climate Sisters that really struck me was it really shines a light on women from the global south, indigenous communities.
Yeah, the people on the front lines.
The people who are on the front lines experiencing those very real and immediate and often, really devastating effects of climate change.
Right.
Despite, I would say, contributing the least to causing it in the first place.
And it's their stories that really drive this home.
Yeah.
Take Aisha Akbar, for instance, from Pakistan. She actually had to relocate. She had to move from her home in Balochistan.
Oh, wow.
Out of concerns for her safety because of her climate activism.
Wow, that's incredible. And it just, what a powerful example of what's at stake, right?
Yeah.
That these women are, that they're putting themselves on the line to speak up and demand change.
Yeah, and the courage that takes, it's really quite humbling.
Yeah.
And I think as we get into more of these stories, you'll see that same level of courage, that same level of resilience again and again and again.
Yeah. It's one thing to read the reports, to see the numbers, the global statistics.
Right.
But it's a whole other thing to hear about how climate change is actually impacting people's lives, like day to day,
Mm-hmm.
And I think Climate Sisters does such an amazing job of bringing those stories to the forefront.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're taking this trip, this journey around the world,
Okay.
meeting these women along the way.
It is quite a journey.
Yeah.
It is.
Let's start in Nigeria,
Okay.
where we meet 12-year-old Deborah Adigbile.
Wow.
12 years old.
Yeah.
She's already witnessing the effects of climate change in her city, in Lagos.
Yeah, and at such a young age.
Can you imagine being 12 and seeing your environment change so drastically?
It's remarkable, isn't it? And she talks about, for example, how the rainy season in Lagos, it's so much longer now than it used to be.
Wow.
And what I think is striking is that her activism,
Right.
it stems from a very personal experience. She developed asthma at just 9 years old.
Oh gosh.
Because of the really intense air pollution in Lagos.
Yeah, that just breaks my heart. It makes you realize, like, how personal this is.
Yeah. It really does.
For those living on the front lines.
For sure.
It's not theoretical.
Exactly.
It's immediate.
Absolutely.
And I think, Deborah's story is just one example of how climate change, it really does impact everyone,
Everyone.
regardless of age, regardless of background.
Yeah. And speaking of those personal impacts, let's circle back to Aisha Akbar's story in Pakistan.
Yeah, please.
We touched upon it earlier, but she, she goes into detail about how the droughts in Balochistan are forcing women to travel farther and farther just to find water.
Oh, gosh.
Which obviously you can imagine the physical toll that takes, right? Exhaustion, dehydration, but then also exposure to dangerous dust storms.
Right, right. Of course, yeah.
And it's a stark reminder, I think, of how climate change often just exacerbates those existing inequalities.
Yes, absolutely.
That are already there.
It's not happening in a vacuum.
No, not at all.
And I think, you see that time and time again. Women disproportionately affected.
Without a doubt.
In so many parts of the world.
Yeah.
So their voices, their stories, I mean, you can't possibly understand the full scope of this crisis without them.
No, their experiences are essential to that understanding. Absolutely. And from those, stark landscapes of Pakistan, we're transported to, the coastal regions of Qatar, where we meet Lina Altarona.
Okay.
And her focus is on protecting mangroves, which are these incredible ecosystems that are so vital for coastal protection, for biodiversity.
They're so important. Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
I love that she's found this really tangible, impactful way to make a difference,
Yeah.
Protecting those mangroves, it's not just about, combating climate change.
Right.
It's about protecting livelihoods, protecting a way of life.
Absolutely.
To so many coastal communities.
Yeah, and it kind of, I think, brings up this question that I think a lot of people grapple with.
Yeah.
Which is, okay, well, what can I do?
Right.
What kind of impact can I possibly have?
Right, yeah.
And I think the stories in Climate Sisters, they offer such a range of answers to that.
Okay. Some, like Lena, are very much focused on those local, those on-the-ground solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Others are working on, a much grander scale.
Right.
Advocating for policy changes.
Yeah.
Systemic shifts. And a great example of that is Xpyr Press, who we meet next.
Okay.
Originally from Mexico, she's an indigenous activist, and her story is really poignant.
Yeah.
She actually had to relocate to the U.S.
Oh, wow.
because of how severe the climate impacts became in her hometown.
Wow.
And it's a tough reminder that climate-induced migration, it's not some, far-off hypothetical, this is the reality.
It's happening now.
It's happening now. This is the reality for millions of people around the world.
And she had to leave her home because of it. That's incredible.
And she brings, what I think is so powerful about her story is that she brings the wisdom, the often overlooked wisdom of indigenous knowledge to the table, right?
Yeah.
To the climate conversation.
Go first, yeah.
She emphasizes the importance of learning from those who have been living in harmony with nature.
Yeah.
For generations.
Yeah, for centuries, yeah.
Exactly.
And then we have Vinzil Harnen.
Yes.
From Papua New Guinea.
Yeah.
Her account, I think, is a really, really, urgent call.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that for island nations, this is an existential threat.
It's about survival.
Rising sea levels aren't just an inconvenience.
Right.
This is about the possibility of losing an entire culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just about losing a home.
Ways of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's much bigger than that. It's cultural identity. It's heritage.
It's everything, yeah.
And Vinzilhar's words, I mean, they are a powerful call to action. I mean, she is quite literally fighting for the survival of her people, of her culture, of her home.
And we end, I think, with a really powerful story as well.
Yeah.
We land in the Philippines, where Marinel Samuco Baldo shares her experience of surviving Super Typhoon Haiyan.
Yeah, 2013.
2013, one of the strongest storms ever recorded. I mean, it's a really stark reminder of how, climate change is increasing the intensity and the frequency
Absolutely.
of these extreme weather events.
Of these devastating events, yeah. And Marinel's story, it's both tragic, but it's also incredibly inspiring. She took this horrific experience and she's become this powerful voice for climate justice,
It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is.
Every single one of these women.
Yeah.
Despite their very, very different backgrounds, the unique challenges they face, there's this common thread of resilience and determination.
Absolutely.
It's almost as if their experiences, as difficult as they've been, it's fueled this commitment.
Fuel the fire.
Or make things better,
Yeah, and that's I think what's so powerful about this collection of stories. It would be so easy to just focus on the loss, on the devastation. Right. But there's this sense of hope that kind of permeates through the pages of this book, that even in the face of of real adversity. Like,
yeah.
We can do this, you know. We can create change.
It's easy to feel, I think, a little overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
By all of this, by the scale of this crisis, by, after hearing these stories and just the immensity of it all. But
right.
I'm struck by how these women, despite all of that, remain so focused on solutions.
Absolutely.
On creating a better future. And I find that incredibly inspiring, honestly.
Yeah. And I think, as you said, like it would be very easy to just sort of get bogged down in the despair of it all.
Yeah.
But going through this book, Climate Sisters, there really is this palpable sense of hope, like a genuine belief that by working together, we can create lasting change.
Yeah.
And as we've kind of gone on this journey, right, from Lagos to the shores of Papua New Guinea,
right,
I'm curious, like what threads have you seen kind of connecting all of these stories?
Well, I think, front and center, right, is this really clear understanding that climate change, it's not just an environmental issue.
Exactly.
Right. This is about social justice.
Absolutely.
It's about economic inequality.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It's about gender equality.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
It really is. It's about those root causes, right? It's about understanding like what's at the heart of all of this.
Yes.
And working towards these big, systemic changes. It's not about just these little Band-Aid solutions.
Right.
It's about really looking at the systems that got us into this mess.
Yeah, and I think that leads to another common thread, which is this really refreshing focus on solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just despair.
Not just woe is me.
Right, exactly. Each of these women, they offer a path forward, whether it's local initiatives like Lena or pushing for, changes in global policy. They're all doing it in their own way.
And it's those diverse approaches, I think, that are so important.
Yeah.
Because it's not a one-size-fits-all.
No.
What works in Qatar might not work in the Philippines.
Right.
But seeing those different solutions, I think, can spark ideas.
Yes.
For other people in other parts of the world.
Exactly. And it really is, I think, you touched on this earlier, but it's that idea that everyone has a role to play.
Absolutely.
No matter how small you think it might be.
Yeah, and I think that's something that can be easy to lose sight of, right?
Yeah.
when we're faced with this global crisis.
Yeah, what can I do?
Right, exactly. It's like, well, I'm just one person.
Yeah.
But when you look at it collectively, like imagine if everyone had that attitude, right? We wouldn't get anywhere.
Exactly. So it's about recognizing that even those small actions, they add up.
And I think that is the third thread.
Yes.
That I see connecting all these stories. It's this power of collective action.
Yeah, 100%.
These women, they're calling on all of us.
Yeah.
They're saying, join us, raise your voice.
Get involved.
Right. Change your habits. Hold those in power accountable. They know.
They get it.
Yeah, they get it. That real change happens when we all come together.
Yeah, when we're united.
Yes.
By that shared purpose. And I think that's such a powerful message.
It is.
And it brings us, I think, to an important question.
Yeah.
For you, the listener.
Yes.
What really resonated with you?
Yeah, what stayed with you? From these stories, what action, no matter how small, are you going to take based on what you've heard today?
Yeah, and maybe it's, as simple as just learning more about what's happening in your own community.
Exactly.
Or maybe it's, volunteering with a local organization, contacting your elected officials.
Right, making your voice heard.
Making your voice heard, exactly. Every action really does count.
It does. It does. And for those who really want to dive deeper, I mean, I can't recommend enough checking out the full Climate Sisters book.
Yes.
I mean, it's jam-packed with even more, inspiring stories, practical solutions.
Yeah, and a real, I think, like a fire that it lights under you to do something. So
absolutely, yeah. It's a call to action.
It is a call to action, yeah.
It's a reminder that we have the power, to create this more just and sustainable future, but it starts with us.
It does.
It starts with each of us.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope this has left you feeling, informed,
inspired,
and ready to make a difference.
Exactly.